Okay, today here we have a half a beef, a carcass beef we're going to break down. I'm going to show you how to break down this half a beef into the 8 primal cuts that comes out of a half a beef. Obviously there's going to be 16 in a whole beef. So as I'm breaking it down, I'll explain to you what I'm doing here. This is the hind quarter. I'm going to pull off the flank. That there is the flank part, one of the primal cuts off a half a beef. The other parts would be the round. This is one of the primal cuts, and then the other half of this is the loin. That's a total of 1, 2, 3, and then off the 4 you get the rib, the plate, the chuck, the brisket is right here. I'll show you when I break it down. And then you get the shank is the last part of it. So now I'm gonna peel the tri-tip back so we can get to the sirloin tip, or some people call it a knuckle. This is the tri-tip. I just pulled away from the sirloin tip. That there's what they call a sirloin tip or a knuckle. There's 2 primal cuts. Now I'm going to separate the loin part from the round. This is the round, and this is your rump roast. When we bone it all down, we'll take this H bone out. The rump roast is right above it. Then you have your round steaks. The round also consists of, if you break it down, you have a top round, a bottom round, and an eye round. But if you cut it whole, they're just round steaks. Now I'm going to separate the head loin from the loin. The loin is where you get your porterhouse and T-bone. The head loin is going to have the tri-tip, the top sirloin, and the filet mignon. There's your filet. There's your top sirloin. And there's the tri-tip that I pulled away from the tip when we were breaking it down. Let's get this out there. You can remove the filet, and then you can bone out this end of the porterhouse, and that'll be your New York strips, which a lot of people do. At this point, we have the loin, the round, and the flank. Those are the 3 pommel cuts that come from the hind. Now we'll get the 4 other primal cuts from the forequarter. The front leg, as we call it. Like I explained before, this is your rib, which is your prime rib. This is going to be your beef short ribs, which all go together, and then your plate, then your brisket. This is going to be the shank, and then your chuck. You're gonna count up to 5 ribs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Break. That is where you're gonna separate your rib from your chuck. I'm gonna take away the shank and your brisket. Those are the other 2 primals. Here's gonna be your 3rd, the chuck. Now I'm gonna separate the prime rib or the rib roast, or you bone it out. You can get some rib eyes, rib steaks. This is a good piece of meat here. It's your prime rib. These will be your short ribs, beef short ribs. A lot of people call them a Texas plate. They smoke them. And this is your plate. Most of it's hamburger, ground beef. There's really nothing there. So once again, that's how you break down half a beef into primal cuts. You have your chuck there, that's 1. This is your plate, number 2. Your rib is your prime rib and your back and your beef ribs. That's number 3. You got your loin. That's number 4. You have your round. That's number 5. You've got your flank, number 6. Your brisket is number 7. And you have shank is number 8. Those are the 8 primal cuts off of half a beef. Sounds good. This is the chuck roast. I already split the chuck. Got the round bone, chuck roast, barbecue steaks, all of that. What I'm gonna do is cut these chuck roasts
as the customer requested, about 1.75 inches. First little bit, chime it off, get it nice and even. Going from there. Typically at a beef this size, we'll get between 5 and 6. And today we get 6. At the base of the chuck roast is the neck. I'll chime that up. So it's nice and clean. We use that for hamburger. This is the round bone roast. Cut this just a little over 2 inches. Two of those. The rest of this will be hamburger. This is your ribeye, or it could be prime rib roast. It could be rib steaks. Chime that off. Chime that off right there. Just like that. Now there's your ribeye and your beef back ribs. These are your short ribs. Cut these in half. That. These are our flanking ribs. The rest of this will be hamburger. Back to the chuck roast. Clean this up, which is the neck. All the scraps will be boned out into hamburger. This customer wants 90-10, so we'll give them that. Pull a lot of this fat out. And that is your chuck.
Working on the hindquarters here. We got the head loin. It consists of your filet mignon, top sirloin, and right here hanging off, we got your tri-tip. So I'm gonna take the filet off first. Okay, got your filet here. Okay, next right here I got the tri-tip. You could already see it's already seamed out a little bit. I'm gonna separate that away from the top sirloin. Tri-tip, we'll clean that up, make it look nice. Top sirloin here. Gonna ride this bone, ensure that we get all the meat off the bone. keep it on your cuts. We got your top sirloin. See a little seam right here? We're gonna seam that off. All this right here, seam that off. We're gonna get what is called a picanha. Just follow that seam all the way down. There you got picanha, top sirloins. Clean those up, we'll cut some steaks out of it. Move on to the brisket here. Got a plate bone that's here covering the brisket. I'm gonna go ahead and bone that out. Get this seam started. See, we got that seam going. Pulls apart pretty easy after that. A little work from the knife. Just follow that seam all the way down. That plate off. There you got your brisket. Trim that up, make it look good. Then right here we got your short loin. We'll get to this in a minute. We're gonna cut some porterhouse T-bone out of that. Got our short loin here. We're gonna get some porterhouse T-bone out of it. You can see the fillet right here. We're gonna cut it down till we run out of fillet. That'll be our porterhouse. Once we run it out of that fillet, then we'll have our T-bones. Customer wants it 1 inch. Got it preset here on the saw. Got our porterhouse right here. Go on to our T-bone. You got it. Porterhouse here, T-bone. Okay. Difference here between your porterhouse T-bone. Here on the left, porterhouse. You can see it's got the fillet, the eye in there. T-bone, nothing, okay? So that's your difference. You got your porterhouse here, T-bone here. So here we're working on the hindquarters still. It's coming off the back leg. We're gonna make some boneless roast out of this. Bone this out right here. Take this knuckle off. Again, we're trying to follow this bone, keep as much meat off of it as we can. Take that knuckle out. Here you can see the seam, boneless rump roast. We're gonna take this seam down here and down to here. Follow that seam right there. You got one boneless rump roast right there. Another one right here. We'll clean those up, net them, get them ready for the customer. Still working on the hind here. Another part of the round. What we're gonna do with this, the customer wants some carne asada. So we have your top, bottom, and eye of round. I'm gonna bone this out, separate it, and we're gonna throw it on the slicer and make some carne asada for the customer. pretty simple bone here. Nothing crazy to it. Little round bone. It's all about the angle, so if you see me flipping this thing around, you always want to have the best angle when you're trying to bone something out. Okay, got that bone out. Now we're going to separate again. Got your top, you got your bottom, you got your eye. We're going to separate those three. Follow the seam. Got your top around. Follow the seam here for the eye. Got your eye around there. Bottom round. Clean those up, make them look good. Slice them into carne asada for the customer. So what we got here is all the trim and loss. What we did, we broke down a half a beef that was about 320 pounds hanging weight. And rule of thumb on that is you're gonna lose about 30% when it comes to bone, fat, trim, everything that we trim off. So we kind of displayed that here for you so our customers can understand a little bit. Just because you have a beef, half a beef that weighs 321 pounds, you're not gonna get 321 pounds of meat back. There's a lot of loss, a lot of trim, and we just kind of wanted to show that, display it, that way people can understand that, you know, you're not gonna get exactly what the hanging weight is off of your beef back in meat. So here it is, 321 pound, half a beef, and that's what you're gonna lose.